Now we will study the sonnet in detail. Origin of the sonnet. Then there are three different types of sonnet: the Italian sonnet, the English sonnet, and the Spenserian variety. Sonnet as a form of poetry has become very popular today. The word sonnet is taken from the Italian word sonetto, which means a little sound, a strain, or a tune. The birthplace of sonnet is difficult to decide. Some say that it started in Sicily, which is in Italy. Others say that it started in Provence, means France. Whatever the fact may be, this form was born in the second half of the 13th century. Dante used it from 1200 to 1300 and Petrarch popularized it. There are three types of sonnet: the Italian sonnet, which is also called as Petrarchan sonnet, the Spenserian sonnet, the English sonnet, or Shakespearean sonnet. We will study all the three types of sonnet one by one. Let us first study the Italian sonnet or Petrarchan sonnet. Petrarch was an Italian poet. The sonnets that he wrote were like models for other poets. From its brilliant use by Petrarch, the Italian sonnet is often known as the Petrarchan sonnet. It is sometimes called the classical sonnet. It is a short poem of 14 lines expressing one single thought or feeling. It is a poem with 14 lines. Usually, it has two parts. The first stanza is of 8 lines, which is called octave, and the second stanza is of 6 lines, which is called sustain. It contains an idea charged with a certain feeling. It has a stanza of 8 lines and a stanza of 6. At the end of octave, there is a pause, which is called as caesura, followed by a volta or turn in the thought. It is the poem that expresses a single thought or feeling. Milton was an English poet, but his sonnets are of the Italian type. Milton's sonnet, When the Assault Was Intended to the City, gives a good illustration of different characteristics of the Italian sonnet. In the octave, Milton appeals to the commander of the royalist forces to spare his defenseless house and promises to celebrate his kindness in immortal verse. In the sustain, he reminds the commander of similar examples of generosity in ancient history. The octave therefore makes a statement. The sustain illustrates its. There is a turn in the thought after the 8 lines. This is the structure of the Italian sonnet. It is divided into two parts: the octave of 8 lines and the sustain of 6 lines. This poem is written by John Milton when the assault was intended to the city. The octave has two rhymes, say A and B, arranged to the rhyme scheme A B B A A B B A. That is to say, the first line rhyming with the fourth, the fifth, and the eighth, and the second with the third, the sixth, and the 17th. The sustain, the last 6 lines, applies the proposition or solve the problem. The sestet sometimes has 3 rhymes and sometimes has 2 rhymes, different from those employed in the octave and arranged in various ways as CD, CD, CD. Second is CDE, CDE, and the third is CDE, DCE, with a pause or caesura after the 8th line followed by a volta. So, we can say that the rhyme scheme of Italian sonnet is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. The second type of sonnet is the English sonnet. The sonnet was introduced into England in the first half of the 16th century by Sir Thomas Watt and Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, two English politicians who, after their return from a diplomatic mission in Italy, wrote verses in this form of pleasure. Surrey wrote his sonnets in 3 quatrains, followed by a concluding couplet. Shakespeare used it so splendidly that it is now called after him, not after Surrey, its real originator. The sonnet by Shakespeare, commonly called Remembrance, may be studied as a model of the Shakespearean type. This is the poem Remembrance by Shakespeare. In the quatrains, the poet expresses grief over past misfortunes. All losses are made up by the mere remembrance of a living friend whom he loves. There is no set range of subject for the sonnet. Shakespeare has limited its theme to love. His sonnets celebrate his attachment to a young friend or his love for a mysterious dark lady. In the hands of Milton, the scope of the sonnet was greatly widened. It included almost everything within human feelings and experiences. Now, we can see that Shakespeare's sonnet consists of 3 quatrains and 1 couplet. The rhyme scheme of each quatrain is different. The rhyme scheme of first quatrain is AB, AB. Second quatrain is CD, CD. Third quatrain is EF, EF. And the couplet rhymes G, G. As the English sonnet is divided into 4 parts, it has no caesura and volta. Now, this is the Spenserian variety of English sonnet. We have seen that the quatrains in Shakespearean sonnets are all unconnected with one another. They have each their own rhymes and cannot therefore be said to be related structurally, though they are united by their subject matter. Earlier, however, Spenser had evolved a new variety in which each of the quatrain was linked to the other by an intermixture of the rhyme. We will see this is the next slide. This is the sonnet by Spenser. Just look at the rhyme scheme of the quatrain of Spenserian stanza. In the first quatrain, the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. And this one rhyme is repeated in the second stanza. The rhyme scheme of the Spenserian sonnet A, B, A, B, B, C, B, C, C, D, C, D, E, E. The second line of the first quatrain is the first rhyme of the second, and the second rhyme of the second quatrain is the first rhyme of the third quatrain, and the couplet stands alone as in the Shakespearean sonnet. So we can see that there is a little difference between the Shakespearean sonnet and the Spenserian sonnet. Thank you so much for your attentive listening.